Welcome, Spookboxers. We have 2 bits of spooky news for you today. This is the first episode coming to you on a Monday, as of our new schedule. That's right, you'll be able to access our latest on a Monday now, because we realised life is just one big weekend. So definitely like and subscribe to get the tent straight to you as it's made. Another update is we're now on iTunes if that's your thing, so search for SpookBox Podcast on there and enjoy some ad-free listening. This episode is sponsored by the 2009 financial crisis. Thanks to deregulation in the financial industry, we're out here making art. Don't let your parents tell you you won't become something. Oh, chuckles.
That's a nice way to begin.
It was such a good intro. I actually didn't want to laugh.
Well, I'm going to keep going. So, this week, Connor, Daff and I...
Hello.
Hey.
...are 3 housemates talking about Blood Quantum,
Aye.
a 2019 Canadian zombie horror film that takes place on a First Nations reserve. The film is super interesting, not only because its title refers to the blood quantum laws in the United States, which have been used to determine indigeneity based on the percentage of one's indigenous ancestry. But we're not going to go into that too much today. If you want to learn more about blood quantum laws as both a federal government enforced restriction on rights and their maintenance by First Nation tribes for tribal citizenship and culture, check out the NPR episode on it, which we'll link in the description below. So, a little bit about the film. It explores a strain of zombie apocalypse that infects those of non-indigenous blood. In effect, this exercises a super interesting commentary on colonialism by putting a sardonic twist on the history of white European settlers bringing diseases they had developed immunity to First Nations persons. We felt the filmmaking ran into some problems mastering its premise, namely the mixing of varying filmmaking styles, emotional tones, and the unreliability of the dialogue. But perhaps requiring something this sociopolitically biting to also be super cohesive in execution is too big of an ask. What do you guys think?
What do we reckon, Connor?
So the first thing I'm going to do is say the blood quantum laws are pretty much all I'm going to talk about today.
Well, if you feel qualified, good sir, then that's absolutely okay.
No, I mean, I did. I read up on it a good wee bit, and
Fantastic.
I really think that a reading of the film that takes into account the whole concept behind blood quantum laws and the kind of weird history of pseudo eugenics that comes with them is really key to the film. I'm going to go ahead and drop a bomb here and say I think the film is actually very critical of blood quantum as any kind of measure of a person's ability to identify themselves in some way. It took me a while to sort of come to terms with that, but I thought about it a lot, and I think that it is actually a film that's very critical of blood quantumness. A wee thing I'm going to chuck in there as well is that I actually think what I read was that Canadian First Nations people actually don't use it. They don't. It's only an American thing.
More of an American thing.
Yeah. Did you see that or not see that or?
I think from what I was looking into, it was only a federal American government thing.
Aye.
But in terms of the use of it by tribes themselves to establish membership, I think it is used
It's been
across Canada because both the government enforced it as like a racist colonial thing, but then it was also used as a effective way by First Nations persons to, just continue their tribe and culture.
Right.
By identifying membership. So it's a really complex thing, which is simply why I wanted to refer to a podcast where people could go more in depth on it, because I really recommend that they do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I watched there's a documentary recommended through Wikipedia. Chris Rock's in it a wee bit as well.
Oh, cool. What's that called?
What's it called?
You weren't prepared
What's
for
it
that.
called? Oh,
Damn.
what isn't it called?
Well, whatever it's called, we'll pop it down in the description.
yes,
as
we
well.
absolutely will.
Don't say we don't give you sources.
It was interesting though, because in that it was definitely about, I mean, maybe this is what's got me thinking the way that I'm thinking about the film, but it was definitely very, very critical of using any kind of blood quantum thing. And I know it is still used today, but don't know. My reading rests on blood quantumness not being totally awesome. So I don't know, man. What did you think?
What did I think? Picking up on this idea that the film is being sort of quite critical of blood quantum, I think I came away from the film feeling a bit underwhelmed by it. But in hindsight, the more I thought about it, the more I sort of appreciated what it was doing.
Yeah.
And I think it is a very critical film. It probably would have been very easy to make a fairly black and white sort of colonial allegory film out of the zombie genre, but I think at the very least it attempts nuance, which I think is really interesting. Also, I just thought it was a really great, scrappy little film.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that about it. I admired
So
the I admired how schlocky it was ultimately.
oh, man,
What?
I didn't. Oh dear, I really.
Maybe this speaks to different taste. Maybe this is
different
just
tastes.
this is something I happily watch films that are sort of gratuitous.
What? I'm glad you're there for that, because I think it really has that gratuitous element to it.
It does, but it comes from a tradition. I think it very clearly comes from that sort of schlocky tradition of early zombie films. I think, well, maybe not even early zombie films, but sort of mid-century.
I have to agree with you, because I read some interviews with the director Jeff Barnaby, and I learned that George Romero was a big influence on him, and that his goal with this film was to indigenize the popular cinematic trope of zombies. So I think that has definitely been achieved. At the very least, this is a B movie with a kind of like steady anarchist political heartbeat.
Yeah. And I think I appreciate that about it. I get that.
I think that
you get that.
That
You're
resonates
like,
with me.
I get the message.
Yeah.
I definitely got it, and I understood that the director and the crew had definitely done their homework. Like I could see all of the effort going into it. I could see all the references, but they were referencing that strand of horror that I just don't get on very well with. The
B-movie horror
when he's eating the lead character's intestines. Go on. Why do we need that? I don't need that. I'm trying to eat chips.
Yeah, I think there were some tropes pulled out of the toolbox of
intestines
B-movie zombie films that maybe we could have done without, but the guy wanted to make a B-movie zombie film.
I think for me, one of the key takeaways for me was in some aspects the zombie genre with films like, I'm guessing like White Zombie, films like that, they do draw from this sort of fear of occult magic or sort of foreign scares, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I did really enjoy the sort of the flipping of that.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that element.
I want metrics on this. I want to know, like, all right.
It is. I say some films because it isn't. Clearly, some zombie films are supposed to allegorize different things. But one of the sort of earlier aspects of the zombie film was about a fear of.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I mean, right. I feel like we're all being really coy. All right, so I'm just going to put my cards out on the table, right?
Even me?
Even you.
The dirtbag left?
Even you, sir. Even you.
No.
I think we're all being really coy. I want to put my cards out on the table in here and say that, like, I have a reading of this film. I really, really respect it. I think it's very interesting, but at the same time, 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, you agree with me?
Well, I kind of know what you're getting at, but I think as I thought about it more,
you're bumping that up.
Yeah. Slightly.
Okay.
I think it was probably deeper than I
think it's deep.
Was able to.
Yeah, I definitely. I think it's deep, but I think it's an experience.
In hindsight, I think the viewing experience itself was actually more enjoyable than I thought.
Right.
Than I initially
Maybe I needed
thought.
a shot or something. Maybe I needed a shot of poaching, and I could just maybe get more into it.
There were definitely a few details that I think we can discuss in more depth.
Sure.
I don't have a rating for you just yet, though.
Oh,
personally.
no, you're being a coward. Go on. Did you like it or not?
I'm being a host. The host has to. The host cannot yap about their selfish opinions. I don't know. I'm just trying to provide the floor for you guys. I'm keeping it fresh. And I actually don't know what rating I would give this film, but I'm hoping we'll be able to come to a decision.
Yeah, hopefully. You can talk me around.
Cool. So do you...
Should go through plot summary or?
Yeah, so if you want to watch this movie, it's streaming on Shudder, and it's an hour and 36 minutes, just in case you've got a schedule.
Oh, nobody has schedules anymore.
Oh, sweetie.
Oh, I've got an hour and 36 minutes between Zoom meetings. Blood
just
quantum.
in case. Okay, so you guys ready for me to infect you with a bite-sized plot summary?
I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
That was good script.
You can't see, dear listener, but Heather did just pull sort of a little I'm proud of this, but should I be proud of this sort of face?
10 grand on writing degree may as well
my scripts
flex
for these,
that muscle.
My scripts for these podcasts literally read things like, now say something funny.
You ad-lib?
Oh man, I'm incapable of not ad-libbing.
I don't feel safe with that. That's chaos. I don't like that. Please stop. Okay, so the movie Blood Quantum 2019. Here we go. Yeah. In 1981, on the Red Crow Indian Reservation in Quebec, Canada, fisherman Gisigu catches and guts a number of salmon and notices that they continue to move despite this. Gisigu's son, Indigenous Sheriff Trailer, responds to a call about a dying dog that belongs to his ex-wife, Nurse Joss. Sorry. Josh? I'm not used to the name Joss, and I just said Josh.
This is my wife. Josh. Hey, actually, we're all okay with that. Wife, this is my wife, Josh.
We are.
Absolutely, yeah.
Joss.
I like that you were laughing about that.
No, I'm laughing because I literally couldn't prepare myself to read the word Joss. It just came out Josh.
I just laughed at the
Josh. As I was doing the S, it just felt weird.
Now I thought of Joss Stone, and I never want to think of Joss Stone.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay,
the scariest thing of all.
We'll continue forward.
Next episode.
So the dog is euthanized by gunshot by Sheriff Trailer, and then he goes to visit Joss and learns that their son Joseph has been arrested for vandalism in a nearby town and is in jail with his half-brother Lysol. Trailer then visits Gisigu, who shows him the gutted yet moving salmon. Joss's dead dog reanimates in the trunk of Trailer's police car, and Trailer shoots it. Gisigu and Trailer set the dog and fish on fire. Seems to work. Trailer and Joss head into town to free Joseph from jail. Trailer, Joseph, Lysol, and police officer Shamu encounter an ill, violent man in the jail who bites Joseph on the arm. Joseph goes to a hospital where his white, pregnant girlfriend Charlie is waiting. That night, Trailer responds to a call from an Indigenous man named Shuker. Trailer enters Shuker's house and is attacked and bitten by Shuker's white girlfriend, whom Trailer beats with the butt of a shotgun. Trailer and Shuker head to a bridge where Joss, Joseph, and Charlie have found themselves after having escaped the hospital in an ambulance. Okay, so that's that. 6 months later, the outbreak of flesh-eating Zeds have become widespread, and the Red Crow Reservation have been turned into a fortified compound. Its residents have learned that Indigenous people cannot be infected by the Zed plague, though white people can. Lysol's become increasingly aggressive towards Joseph and others' tendency to bring outsiders, such as a man and his young daughter, the latter of whom was bitten by an infected person, as well as a girl named Lilith, who hides the fact that she has also been infected, to the compound. That night at Lysol's shelter away from the compound, Joseph finds the now zombified Lilith chewing on the severed penis of Lysol. That's right, one more time. Chewing on the severed penis of Lysol.
And to be clear, it looks like they've made a penis out of a cake, basically. It looks like a sort of marzipan topping to a cake.
Oh,
Which
I
is
thought it looked really
definitely a
anatomically
business.
correct.
So,
Oh
no.
now we've learned some truths about
Whoops.
our podcasters. Old cake penis over here.
leave that one for the wiki.
That's how I'm known.
Okay. So Joseph and Lysol, no penis Lysol, drive back to the Sorry,
That's what they call him.
just so it's clear that he's bleeding from the crotch right now. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, it's something I couldn't stop thinking. I was like,
You can't stop thinking about it.
I was
how is
counting
he-
down, like,
I'm a dickless person, and the pain I imagined he was in, like, he's just like walking away with his brother. It's really weird.
if you've had one of your limbs torn off, you don't have that long to live, and he yet seems to muscle through it.
One of your limbs? Oh, okay, we've learned something else today. All
I
right.
thought a penis is a limb, isn't it?
I don't think
It's an
so, mate.
appendage.
Appendage.
It doesn't have
different.
bone in
I
it.
think I thought limbs.
It doesn't have bone in it. You say.
Not till I walk in the room, boys. Let's continue this.
Too easy.
Shooting fish in a barrel, I tell you. Right.
Reanimated fish are just.
Right, just the gutted salmon,
My joke wasn't as good as
Settle
yours.
down.
So
down.
settle down, boys. So Joseph and Lysol, drive back to the compound with Lilith in restraints. Lysol stabs Joseph with a knife and lets Lilith loose inside the compound. Trailer and Gisku, who went on a mission to eliminate zombies at a gas station with fellow tribesman Bumper, return to the compound to find it overrun with zombies. They learn that Joss, Joseph, Charlie, and 8 other survivors are trapped in the basement of the compound. In the process of rescuing them, Trailer is eaten alive by zombies. Joss, Joseph, and Charlie escape with Gisku and Bumper, while Gisku and Joseph enter a church to stop 2 associates of Lysol from murdering a group of survivors. Lysol finds Joss, Charlie, and Bumper. See, there's a lot going on. Lysol kills Bumper and Joss shoots Lysol, but not before Lysol is able to unleash a zombie from under the trunk of a car. The zombie bites Charlie and Joseph arrives and kills the zombie. Joseph and Gisku lead a wounded Lysol away from the scene and Joseph stabs Lysol. Gisku lets off a gunshot into the air, alerting zombies to the location where Lysol is. The zombies proceed to eat Lysol alive. Joseph, Charlie, and Joss set out into a large body of water on a boat. Gisku, armed with a sword, stays behind on land to fight off the zombies. On the boat, Charlie gives birth to a baby girl. Charlie, succumbing to her bite wound, asks Joseph to kill her before she transforms into a zombie, and he mournfully shoots her in the head. Okay. We're going to do the discussion a little bit differently this week.
Who are we?
I've tabled out what worked for me and what didn't in this film. And for each point, you guys
This really is scary.
can agree or disagree, but you have to explain why.
Okay, go on.
I just thought it'd be fun, like, kind of...
Feels like I'm
they're
on,
like zombies. It's like you'd have to...
Feels like I'm on Jeopardy or something. I don't know.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Just
Finish
think
up.
of them as discussion points. So in my worked column, first up,
You better worked.
moody and gloomy vibe, particularly in the first act. Thoughts?
I mean, only the first act, really.
Yeah.
I think. Like,
Yeah, only the first
I think,
act.
like, honestly, I've read a lot of reviews of this film, and a lot of people invoke Twin Peaks when they talk about the first part of this film before the sort of 6-month period.
We have no choice but to love it.
I know, and it's a shame. And part of me thinks it's a shame that this wasn't just a film about the slow disintegration of
Society?
their community, basically, of society crumbling around them, basically.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame that I understood that what they were going for. They wanted to reference, like, they wanted to have the sort of set piece battle scenes.
Yeah.
And maybe you can't do that if it's a slow film about the sort of disintegration of society.
But the compound became kind of campy.
It did,
That jump
yeah.
6 months forward
And I think,
really
like,
changed the tone.
To the point as well that, it's a shame, but it did look like a set. The compound
looked like
really
shit.
did look like a set.
It looked like shit.
Which is a shame because, like,
Nothing looked like shit before.
In contrast to in contrast to the sort of town and the sort of quietness and the sort of mist everywhere.
Stunning drone shots.
Yeah.
Give it.
It was and these sort of weird shots of the landscape during the opening credit sequence, where the camera just sort of tilts everywhere.
Yes, the like drunk walk home camera.
I thought that was a really interesting
Loved
way to
it.
set the scene, and I think they slightly ruined it. I think by
I agree.
cutting to the compound.
Now
Is
that
it
you've-
like two different films?
Pretty much, yeah.
Now that you've highlighted that, you've actually made it clear for me what it was, and it was that. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a very cerebral. Very cerebral take on the genre, and I got that from those strange Dutch angled shots at the beginning. I mean, they're not Dutch angled; they were totally insane. They were, flipping over. It was more like
Finnish angles.
It was
You
like
don't have to laugh at that, guys.
Belgian angles.
It must have been a drone. There's no other way. But the quality of image doesn't suggest that it was from a GoPro, which is what you usually strap to a drone. So I think they actually strapped something a lot more expensive to a couple of drones, and just hope that their duct taping solution worked, because that aerial footage was really fantastic. Or maybe it was might have been a glider, might have been somebody in a glider, but anyway.
And the script was also quite sparse in the first act.
So I thought they were going to do a lot of telling, a lot of showing rather than telling. I thought it was going to be a visual film. And then and
also, well, I mean, there's also the way that the film opens, the way that we're introduced to this disease
was really brilliant.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. The way that with the fish,
it was
coming
dreadful.
Back to life. It was. Yeah,
it had a 28 days or 28 weeks later kind of feeling to it.
Yeah.
So then, when it started to devolve, or elevate, if you're Sam Raimi and early career Peter Jackson. When it started to change shape into those kinds of schlock films, I really felt like I don't know,
shortchanged.
I felt like I was watching a fake version of the film or something. Like maybe that speaks a wee bit to where we get our films from, but it really
don't show them how the sausage is made.
It just felt a bit cheap at that stage, and so for me, like my reading of the film has had to kind of as I have to kind of ignore a lot of the schlockier elements of the film, but then I'm thinking of something that Bob Chipman, movie Bob, said about the film, which is that sometimes an important thing doesn't have to be straight-laced.
That's what I've come to feel about this movie. That it's too important to care about details such as this, but it's fun nonetheless to say what if that second and third act had been slightly different.
I think as well, to be fair to the acts based in the sort of barracks, I think it is a sort of, it works on the level as a sort of allegorical sort of space of, if we're thinking about sort of colonial era America, it's very evocative to have people literally trying to...
Colonial era America? When did that end?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. But early colonial era America.
Early colonial era.
It's a sort of very evocative space of people literally trying to shield themselves from these invaders, basically. But so part of me wonders if, that messaging would sort of be muddied by the idea of just having this sort of somber town falling into sort of disarray. I wonder if maybe that messaging would be lost if they'd gone for that, if they'd gone for a sort of more cohesive kind of mood from the beginning.
The other thing that's...
Still, I probably would have preferred that, to be honest.
The other thing that's sticking in my head here is I was going to say it would have been good if they had gone whole hog with the sort of schlocky elements of it. But this is a film that contains the line, "You don't need to reload a sword."
You don't need to reload a sword, yeah. The best line in the film.
I think that what's...
Zed dead?
Zed dead, yeah. Zed dead.
What's uncomfortable maybe is that the film is like simultaneously a love letter to this guy's influences, but also something entirely new and fresh in its premise. And I think that it's maybe that the paying creed to his references holds back his own vision in a sense.
Perhaps.
Could be. It could be. And then another part of me thinks that in my lust for this film to be more, as I said, cerebral, you know, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just my fragile, pretentious sensibilities. You know what I mean?
But it is cerebral. It's just not the entirety of it.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Maybe I'm failing the film. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. I can see that you totally believe that. You've really convinced me of that.
I am seriously wondering this. You know, maybe this film just offended my fragile sensibilities, that I thought if something's going to have a serious message, it needs to, you know, look and feel a bit like a Terrence Malick film.
I think one of the things that I sort of agree with you, but I think at one point or another, I started thinking about the film, and I almost sort of began thinking of it almost as a sort of Spike Lee joint.
Oh,
do you know what I mean? Like the idea of taking, you know, sort of quote unquote low culture, the low culture of the sort of B movie,
yes,
the zombie B movie, and then sort of playing with it, I guess.
You see, now that you've dressed it up in terms that an academic can be comfortable with, I'm like, oh, now I see. Oh, yes. So a Spike Lee. Oh, yes, it's an appropriation of the of quote unquote low art.
Yeah.
You know, if one was to reference Susan Sontag's early work, we would be able to think of a way in which this is a fusion of low art and high art to become something where the
don't read Sontag's early work.
Voice. The subaltern can speak and all that.
That's fine, but before you settle down and say, right, it's all great, it's brilliant, let me just take you right on by my didn't work
through the
column.
weeds.
Your did work column had one thing in it.
No, I'm going to pinball between the
pinball.
Two. Keep it fresh.
Yeah.
As soon as we think we've lost it, I'll whip you back again. So
you're the best host.
Go on.
Yeah, the second act, flabby and silly, but really we need to talk about Lysol. The character Lysol. He was musical theatre.
Are we saying character or actor?
Do you think that it was a problem with the character or the actor?
Well, I actually think it's kind of both.
I'm interested. Go on.
Yeah, I think the character of Lysol was very, very interesting, actually. But it was interesting because it's a tension that that not everybody's going to have. He's not an everyman character. He's not an everyman antagonist. You know, his angst comes from having a very young father who wasn't ready to be, an actual caregiver to him when he was younger. And that's not a story that we really have that often. Do you know what I mean? It's certainly not a character that you get too often in white films. You tend not to have people that are angry at their dads for not giving them attention. Well, often that is a subtext, that people will have these father issues, but it was made very explicit within this film. And the way that he framed that was, the whole reservation knows about how Trailer,
the sheriff,
the whole reservation knows about Trailer's antics when he was younger. So it's kind of an interesting thing to think of that. Basically, the father was I'm just going to say, stop me if I've gone off piste here, but basically the father was like a slut when he was younger, and within this context, but it's a weird thing.
It's just really hard to imagine a tall, impressive, like indigenous dude being called a slut.
But that's the sort of vibe that we're getting, is it not? Like that people are kind of, that the reservation was sort of mad at Trailer for,
But hold on a second, can you just step it out for me? So is Lysol the kid of Trailer and another woman?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he's not Joss's kid?
No.
No.
Joseph is Joss and Trailer's kid.
Yeah, that's right.
I see. Okie doke.
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So had you sort of assumed that it was the other maybe the other way.
You're not used to the...
I thought I was maybe totally off base there for a second.
No,
but
the step-sibling thing is usually linked by the mother, so...
Yes, yeah. So I thought I sort of picked up on that. So that was that's an interesting character to be playing with, for that to be your arc. It actually it shows up sometimes in like Japanese dramas when people aren't too sure who their fathers are,
and also like an unreliable older sibling is quite rare.
Yeah,
he's the older sibling.
He is the older one. Yeah.
Like a fuck up older sibling. It's just unusual. I think it's just, for me, I identified it as a character problem because it's quite a unique character, but maybe also just his...
Yes, but
you think it's the actor.
Lysol is the key to the film because he is the one who's obsessed with blood quantums.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I know. And then that is born out of his anxiety because he knows that he's not the bastard son of his father, but he is the unloved or unwanted son of his father, and so he has to deal with the fact that his blood is half the blood of someone that his father chose to not take on as a life partner. And I think that is what's giving him anxiety,
or someone who's not present and clearly isn't part of the tribe and the reservation community.
Yeah, even better. Yeah. That's, I think, is more probably what they're going for.
I suppose my logic here is first part of film good.
Yeah.
Lysol not really in first part of film, therefore Lysol bad. But maybe he's wrongly in the didn't work column. Like he said, he is central to the film.
He's central to the film. He should work. And then the issue is that you have this poor actor who I think is very talented. He acts in a way that
Is it just a case of miscasting?
Basically? He acts the way that I
sort of agree.
Acted when I did acting, but in fairness, I only acted for, a handful of people out in rural Northern Ireland where the standard was quite low. So
you couldn't get into too much trouble there.
I couldn't get into too much trouble, whereas this guy's on the big screen going, I just can't stand my dad. Why did you turn your back on me?
Ball change.
He does look as though he's about to burst into song at any moment.
He really
he
does.
has some jazz shoes for sure.
Yeah, he's definitely got, he went to Juilliard. He's got some headshots up on some websites.
Yeah, because he had the like bad guy hunk thing going on, and I think that was maybe miscast because it was like,
hey nerd. He's sort of like a jock almost.
Like a jock. Yeah, he had like big jock energy, and it was like weird in that movie, which wasn't really to do with that sort of culture. Like,
I look in the mirror and what do I see? Trailer staring back at me.
Okay, so swinging you back to my worked column, I thought the cultural backdrop of the reservation did work because it's freaking refreshing. I just loved seeing a film from a First Nations director.
Yeah.
I just love to see it.
Can't disagree with that. Like,
so,
absolutely.
It has to be in the worked column. Just refreshing filmmaking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always
also in this genre
refreshing
too.
plot.
I mean, because as well, like when I think of First Nations people in horror films, there's usually one.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a whole cast here.
And they're almost always a stereotype. They're the ones with the sort of second sight. They're the ones that see the danger coming from a mile away being sort of broadcast through sort of cryptic messaging or something.
Yeah.
But I loved that you had so many First Nations people in the film, none of which were stereotypes, really.
Yeah.
I don't think. And everyone having sort of different backgrounds within the reservation and different ideas and different sort of politics to a degree as well. I
different
thought that was
tensions,
amazing. Yeah.
Like absolutely. Yeah. You got something to say, Connor?
I do have something to say, and it's absolutely about that and about how it works on that level of using those themes and using the reservation not just as a place but as a theme. But for me, it relates back to the idea of the blood quantum, and that. Yeah, so this is the central tension of the film. Then is do we let white people in? you know, or actually it's more not even just white people, although they do focus mostly on white people. Like you see in there, they have that big banner near the beginning where they've said, if it's red, it's dead. If it's white, it bites. You know, so there is that particular like singling out of a race. But I think essentially what they're saying is, you know, non-First Nations people, do we let them into this identity? And this is something that's super interesting.
It's really interesting because like the white European settlers historically have been fatal to First Nations people. The thing that took place in Quebec, where I mean, there's so many things that have took place, but there, and particularly in this area, there was some kind of ambush by like French settlers, just like horrific lies and deceitfulness. You know, to have a film even explore like 1 inch of that history is like fascinating to me, because there has to be a cultural legacy of problematic emotions like buried from that. You know, how could there not be? And how could you not, as a white person watching this movie, with the knowledge that the little knowledge that we have from history and what took place, be like, oh, white people fucking suck, don't let them in. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so pliable for a zombie film in particular, because the way that this plays out is like...
But this is what I liked so much about the film, is that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The reservation falls apart.
It does,
because they try to be xenophobic. And that, I think, is the most interesting thing.
That message is contained in there for sure. I wondered if,
So that's the reason that's the reason I like the film. You know, I know I said 5 out of 10, but I do think that central conceit is fascinating and worth talking about. It was too gory for me. Spoiler alert, I'm not that okay with gore.
Aye.
I'm a little bit soft.
I'm a bit desensitized, to be honest.
We'll just do a quick drive-by. Like, in the didn't work column is the vulgar humor, which is related to the gore, I guess. Like, it's kind of fun, but it's also odd. Like, I don't know if it works.
There's one bit in particular that I think really doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's the part where trailer
intestines. Intestine stare.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was it called in the shooting card? You know, what was written on the clapper?
Like
intestine stairs. Take 5.
Basically, it's Trailer's hero moment. He holds the door, keeps the zombies at bay as the others escape.
Yeah.
And you know, it's this sort of beautiful little scene. They let go. Let's go of his hand. And like, he's gone. He's saved us. He's saved our lives. And then there's just sort of where they could have tastefully cut away as the zombies were about to pounce on him. Instead, you get this sort of really horrible scene where his innards are being torn out.
Yeah, the meters of innards.
Basically, it's just
they're all just coming out.
One zombie's just pulling miles of innards out of him, and then suddenly a parakeet.
But is that like a white people thing to be like so concerned about
innards?
Concerned about the like source material and the fact that this is a First Nation story, and be like, oh no, we don't want to see that. Like,
this has been my whole issue.
There should be freedom for...
Am I failing the film and reading it?
Am I being like too white?
I sort of know what you mean.
To be like upset? Like, that's so weird.
And I think, you know, the gratuitous violence in the film, it definitely stems from the genre, but also you do get the impression that it's a film about systemic violence turned into sort of literal violence, in a sense.
It's got,
so at least
there's scarification in the community.
In that respect, yeah, exactly.
And the scarification in the community is ultimately what even with their immunity to the zombie virus, creates these factions between the First Nations people, and they ultimately don't all survive. I think that the impact of the settler colonialism has impacted these people's lives, like, in such a way that, you know, there are problems. Like, Lysol is a bit of a toe rag.
See, I don't...
Like,
no,
Joseph's a
I
vandalizer.
don't think it is that.
You don't think it's that?
No, the film is not saying that it's the white man's fault. It isn't.
But it is the white man's fault.
No, well,
I see what you're getting
initially
at.
it was
There's-
the white man's fault for like a couple of thousand years.
But, like, it's
But
the
then-
white man's fault that there's problems in that community in the first act. Like,
No, it's not. In the first act.
aye.
Which is the first act? With the fish?
The fact that the two teenage boys are, you know, in the jail tank and
No, what?
getting in trouble.
Well, because of like, you know, because First Nations people have been moved to reservations and things like that, and because maybe they don't have enough to do and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, the two boys are also, you know, choosing to act out in that way. But no, but that's not to separate things from social systemic violence and oppression and stuff. But I think the film is very aware of that and plays that up and doesn't try to excuse, you know, white people, colonial people. And I'm going to actually get back to that whole thing in a second. And that's why I said non-First Nations people earlier, because there's a wee interesting thing that I've been saving up my sleeve. It's the only bit of knowledge I actually have this week.
Is it that
Oh no, don't, you can't spoil it. It's my only knowledge. This is how I self-identify.
Oh, okay.
Let him have his morsel.
I'm a brain in a jar, you know. That's me. But no, you see, so when you were saying that it's the systemic violence,
I sort of meant to sort of general. There's a general sense of that. I can't necessarily pinpoint it.
Right.
But you do get the impression that something like systemic violence, generational trauma is sort of turned.
Yes.
It's sort of turned into sort of almost comical sort of.
the problem,
Yeah.
the reason they don't survive is the blood quantum. It's instead of seeing native identity as something that can be adopted by self-identification, which is something that has happened recently, where quite a few Native American tribes and First Nations tribes in particular have said the key. The very first thing that you need if you're going to be First Nations is you need to self-identify.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go DNA test.
Right.
Don't go lineage. Go self-identification first. Whereas the problem is Lysol is a eugenicist douche. I don't know why I said that so strangely.
Where
A douche.
Where do the other...
I've gone Nick Cage.
I'm just not going to focus on it for your benefit. Where do the other characters relate to the blood quantum, though? Like,
because the other characters are saying it's not that big a deal. You know,
are they saying that?
Well, you know, Charlie is quite happily, you know, willing to have a child with Joseph. You know,
Yeah, but
so there is that thing that's there, and so the end of the film.
that's on the part of the white person. I mean, in terms of the First Nations people, do they all really think it's not that big a deal and that they should let the white people in? I don't think so.
If you think about Trailer's reaction to the guy that shows up with the infected girl at the beginning, what he asks him is she no, what he asks the guy is, you know, are you willing to be one of us? You know, are you willing to, you know, leave the shit that you had out there and come into the reservation and do things our way? That's
fine, right? But you have to understand that the fact is that the people that are let in, that father and Lilith, the like hilarious like lefty looking punk girl that's like woker than thou, but then bites guy's dick off, like they both lie. They've both been bitten, so they are liars, and you can't trust them, and they ultimately bring the commune down.
What you have done there
is
poke a hole in my argument.
Neither of them are trustworthy, and it ultimately brings... It ultimately causes Trailer to die by letting them in. So is it really that good an idea?
No, so yes. So this is, I think, what the film is trying to say. It is trying to say white people suck.
White people lie and they suck.
So I think we have that, and we have that one in our back pocket. But I think the thing is that as much as white people suck, by and large, there are a couple of people who aren't, who, whether they're white or not, it doesn't matter. They're willing to just, muck in and be the right thing, aka Charlie. And they're willing to do the right thing. They're not carrying that external virus. And instead they're willing to muck in. And but then the problem is, it's not being Native American that saves... No, God. It's not being First Nations. I'm really sorry about that. It's not being First Nations that is the key here. The key thing is the mentality of the characters.
I totally agree with you. They actually... What I think the film is saying is...
Success.
You cannot be a white person coming to, in this film, the First Nations commune simply for selfish reasons.
Yeah,
I want to be safe. It's scary out there. I don't like it. I want XYZ from your community. You're selfish. Eventually that white selfishness will get revealed, and you will not only do harm to yourself, you'll do harm to others.
You can't do it for the Instagram.
Charlie was actually emotionally and romantically invested in the community. And through that, she has a child with Joseph who survives at the end, and I don't think it's a hopeful end, but in a sense,
I think it's a hopeful end.
Well, her child will be immune because they just have a blood quantum of First Nations. The child's okay.
Well, they might or they might not, but you see, I thought it was...
she's infected, but the child is born and isn't infected, so you can assume that the child is fine. So the blood quantum does uphold, but the reason that it does is that Charlie is invested in the community.
See, now this is the wee bit that I will just chime in. So blood quantums are, scientifically speaking, totally unreliable. We actually don't
absolutely. I mean, in terms of the vehicle of the zombie virus, like in the movie, I mean, it upholds just in terms of that.
Is it a recessive gene? Is it a dominant gene? You see, this is the thing. See, we don't know enough, and I think that they know we don't know enough.
I'm specifically talking about within the movie.
The wee babby.
The wee babby is fine because they're part First Nations. They're safe from the virus.
Yeah, but they might be a prick, and if they're a prick, they're not fine, because
absolutely. Yes. But it's important that they are the child of Charlie and Joseph, and yes. Charlie was a white person who actually cared about the community.
Not prick. It's
just all about being not a prick.
That's what I think.
Yeah, totally.
The prick gene is way more fatal than the white gene.
But it has to be said that there's far more
prick gene on the white
gene in white people. If you want to to run a genealogy test, whatever. You're
showing dangerous levels of prick gene.
And if you've came from white, the chances of being a prick are just concentrated.
Goes hand in hand with like eating.
Okay, we've done our darndest with that. But something else that worked for me, which I think is very easy to forget, is the comic book animation segments.
Totally forgot about them.
Right?
Totally forgot about them.
I think there should be more of them. Or do you think that was a wee bit too scrappy and should have just been left out?
I think about it and I don't really know what they were doing there.
Well, it didn't fit with the B-movie thing.
Did you like them in Mandy?
And I think it reminded me of Mandy.
That's one of the things I don't remember about Mandy.
Right.
Was there sort of a lot of sort of psychedelic...
Yeah, it was like heavy metal album cover stuff.
I think...
But that was all stitched together in Mandy with like the music, the grief, like
Let's watch Mandy
There's
again.
there's something about the sort of comic book style bits that I just thought, well, what is this doing here? They turn up about 3 times.
I think the thing is that sort of style, its inclusion is quite like a...
It goes with the B
intense
movie.
Emotional one. No, it doesn't go with the B movie. I think if you're going to, I think if you're doing that, it's kind of,
it was all animated.
The B movie.
You're gone now. You're gone.
I'm in a wrinkle.
Yeah, you had one weekend where you were basically hallucinating, and you watched the B movie. I
hallucinated watching the B movie, and I need to watch it normally just to see if it was as mad as I think it is. But
the thing about these animated bits,
they're like kind of somber.
I think they are kind of B movie. I think they're meant to invoke a sort of poster aesthetic. Like the poster aesthetic of a B movie.
Or something. Yeah.
Sure. But to me, they're kind of like very emotive as well. Like if I think about, and creepy, like if I think about The Last Unicorn, which I think is like a reference point for those kind of psychedelic illustrations, like it's such an odd, sad movie. Like a lot of movies that were pitched at kids in the 80s in that like psychedelic era and style are incredibly dark and sad, and they were just weird. Like, so to me, yes, they're coming...
Put that on your poster. The Last Unicorn, dark, sad, and weird.
Like really,
we have it all.
Like full of grief and like depressing. So like whenever I see that style, it's like really dark and beautiful to me.
It's like Watership Down. Okay,
yes.
Now I see where
it's about death.
You didn't feel that?
I did not feel that at all. I don't really.
It's kind
I don't know
of Wicca. I have to read Wicca in it because he included a character called Lilith.
I'm trying to think now, what were the scenes?
It was a pregnant woman in the forest, so it's all it's very Wicca, like symbolism.
I don't know. I wasn't into it.
The adjective,
for whatever reason, I just wasn't into it.
Is the adjective form of Wicca not Wiccan?
Yeah, but you can also say like Wicca symbolism as a noun.
I out-Wicca'd a witch.
No, you didn't. I used it in a noun.
Does that make me a warlook?
That means you get 3 wishes?
Which nobody is shocked
Grant
by.
my 3 wishes.
Okay, didn't work.
I mostly just didn't know what they were doing there.
Sure, that's fine.
I had no real feelings about the animation parts. I was happy enough with them.
I just wanted to say that Mandy is cool again. Shout out to Mandy.
Mandy's
my
amazing.
favourite film. Didn't work. I have The Lack of a Point, despite its promise, but you have said that there is a point.
I know where you're coming from. I definitely know where you're coming from with that because, look, it took me... I have a PhD. I keep it in a tube.
What?
I keep it in a tube somewhere, but like I do literally have a PhD.
What did you do?
It's in the stuff drawer.
And it took me a day and a half of reading articles about like the legal system and blood quantum and criticisms of the blood quantum to go, oh, and I think
it's criticizing the blood quantum.
I think it is, and I've got a degree in film studies and, all that sort of crack. And I think if it takes me that long to get a point out of this, you maybe needed to make it a wee bit more obvious.
Yeah, see, and I just don't think that point is there then.
Oh, class.
if it took you a couple of days to find it, it has to come to you like along with the viewing.
Right.
For it to be a point.
No, but,
to be clear,
I also was missing knowledge. When I watched the film the first time, I hadn't read the papers. Do you know what I mean? So it's not his, the director, I don't know how they identify, but the director, will obviously have had that knowledge. That's why they called the film Blood Quantum, or
not only knowledge but lived experience. They were part of the Micmac community.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. So so they had that. So for whatever reason, they were going for at the very least they were trying to invoke the blood quantum in some way. Whereas I didn't even know what the blood quantum was until I googled it.
Sure.
Afterwards,
I think that they were wanting to, like I said earlier, indigenize the zombie film.
Yeah.
And that they were reluctant to have to speak for all First Nations perspectives with that. They just wanted to make the setting on a reserve.
And I think that was very clever of them to just
and make it kind of punky and spunky and movie-ish. And that is what it is.
To just do one reserve, I think, was a really good thing, you know, because as I said, with the bit of research that I did do, you know, I was very embarrassed to hear that, you know, when I was thinking First Nations, I was thinking the entirety of North America, you know, and you know, I'll put my hat on my heart here and say, you know, I had absolutely no idea that, you know, so many of these different nations have now found an identity and found a voice, and so that to refer to somebody as, you know, even a bizarre term like, now I understand a bizarre term, Native American, you know, you're so generalizing.
Absolutely.
You know? So I thought it was now it all kind of makes sense to me why it was just one reserve, what it was that maybe was being got at, and I think it would have made the film a bit less slick if there had been like a Star Wars style title crawl where there.
I mean, to me, it just makes sense that you would not generalize all of the peoples of a certain area that are native to it as one culture and one community, because from my experience as a Scottish person and reading about the history of Scotland, it's a marketing of the place to sell the resources that the colonizers have taken from it, to say it's one big place. It's a branding exercise. So even to say Native American is a generalizing of like really different groups of people, and as a exercise in that further colonizing and subjugation. I think.
Because you've got Scottish people, and you've got Irish people, and then you've got English people, and you know that makes up the whole UK rainbow.
No, but you know, I'm very different from somebody from Aberdeen who's Doric, or someone from Shetland. There's, or someone from the Hebrides. Like, there's so many different kinds of people in Scotland even, and it's a darn shame that they all just get like.
I mean, the big joke is that everyone from Ulster is just nuts, and you know, the other Munster, Leinster, and Connacht are fairly well adjusted folk. But I don't know. I
think just like being from like the Celtic nations, we can all imagine what it's like to be like grouped into something against your will.
It does. It rings a bit of a bell.
It rings a wee bell. Obviously, not nearly as.
It's a very small
badly.
Bell. Basically, but yeah, sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It just you kind of go, that's probably not. That's probably a colonizer's doing.
This,
do you know
but
what I mean?
Worse.
Exactly. Far worse.
So much worse.
Far worse.
Yeah. Are we on rocky ground here? Are we on shaky ground?
I mean,
guess we'll find out.
I guess we'll find out.
No, like, all I wanted to say, like, because I think it's cool, is that reading about like the history of Scotland, like as a place, it was always different native tribes.
Yes.
That didn't see themselves as one unified thing, that then became unified by English colonizers. So it's
Roman colonizers first, but then
they did identify like one specific tribe and name them. They didn't group everyone together.
Oh god.
But that happened after.
Even the Romans did it better. Oh no way.
Yeah, kinda.
Oh god.
I don't know. It's just interesting, like the like. I think the more I read, the more I realise that colonisation is everything. Like,
that lasting legacy.
It's everything. I mean, it's
absolutely
it's
everything.
Conceptions of nationhood as well, you know.
Yeah.
It's in fucking everything, and it's really important to talk about, and so that's why we love this film, just because it's starting the conversation.
This is my these sorts of retellings of these kinds of stories, of these kinds of genres. It's absolutely my bread and butter, pretty much. I love this kind of thing. Because it sparks you thinking about it. Yeah, exactly. Thinking about history and the legacy. It helps me draw a line between, you know, for all that people are talking about the end of the world at the minute. for a lot of people, the apocalypse already happened.
Wow.
And continues to happen.
That's a fucking soundbite.
Sustained, you know.
That's really good.
People have lived through the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And if you're on the right side of history, the apocalypse is just exercise in the imagination.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the main takeaways of this film is that, you know, it's the apocalypse, but it's not an unfamiliar apocalypse.
Yeah.
In many ways, it already happened.
This shit again.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like white privileged people, the apocalypse is just an aesthetic. It's like getting to play dress up with the like atrocities that your ancestors have exercised. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this film has definitely burrowed a wee place in my heart where I absolutely respect the hell out of it. Even if the aesthetic isn't one that I would gravitate towards naturally, I think it's an amazing conversation starter, you know. So
part of the like in my worked column I've got one more thing. And I've already mentioned her. It's the white girl lefty character Lilith.
She works.
I just find it so
the kid
funny
stays in the picture
that he included just
riot
like
girl.
a riot girl, slightly turfy
Eating
looking
dick.
like lefty girl.
She's turf looking.
Who's like coming in and being like, yeah, I'm cool, and then like eats a First Nation guy's dick. Like, I just thought that was such a funny character, and she's called Lilith. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was funny that she was called Lilith.
it was funny.
Lilith is that's something to do with
Biblical.
Satan.
She was
Yeah.
she was supposedly in the Bible Adam's like first
Adam's first
wife.
All right.
Like, Adam's a slut. You want to talk about sluts? And because she was okay with her sexuality, like didn't have shame around it and slept with him, she sent to hell straight away. So you meet her in the
Lucky.
Bible as like, well, from what I've read, I don't read the Bible. I've read secondary sources.
When I was last reading the Bible.
When I was last having a wee flick through. No, so basically you meet her in hell and it's like she's Satan's sidekick and she's like this naked, sexy woman. But like Wiccan culture reclaims her and says like, yeah, she likes sex, so what? Have you listened to WAP? Like, basically she was listening to WAP before you were, is Lilith. So that's who she is.
I can't think of a better way to close out the episode.
There it is.
So it's just fun that like he then had that character eat a guy's dick as a zombie.
Yeah.
Eat a dick.
But the thing that I found fun about it was that she looked like an ally and then was a fucking fibber. And I think it speaks to like white performative allyship.
You think
like,
that was the
I
most
thought there was a
certainly
wee
conscious.
criticism in there and I thought that was cool as fuck.
All right.
So should we wrap it up? Do any of you guys have an idea about what the ending was saying before we go?
Oh yeah, no, I thought it was Children of Men. I thought it was very hopeful.
Yeah, I sort of agree. It was, you know, that's the thing about these films is they always have... There always seems to be a pregnant person in these films who gives birth at the end, or maybe they don't give birth at the end.
I know.
But it's usually a very telling thing.
I hate pregnancy and I hate babies and I hate natalism. I hate it all.
It's not very Wiccan of you.
I identify as a crone and I have been in the crone phase since I was about 6 and I will continue to be. You think I would choose to have a womb? Jesus. Anyway, so yeah, from this crone to another.
Aye. Please subscribe.
Please watch this film.
Please
it's
do.
like really,
Watch the
really
film.
Yeah, watch the
interesting and
film.
cool.
A lot of people seem to like the film.
And what are we doing next week?
See, I'm interested in the salad fingers thing.
I think we should do salad fingers.
I'm not quite sure how it's going to work because I mean I don't know how many episodes there are.
I think there's 6.
6 episodes.
I think it's at the most it's 25 minutes worth of footage.
That'll be a lot of fun to talk about. I think.
I think it's
Also, be interesting. I think to like sort of branch out beyond movies. That'd
it's
be
history
cool.
now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
As
is,
well,
yeah.
so it's
Absolutely.
the history of like flash filmmaking. And all that kind of stuff,
I'm interested in talking about that kind of
There's
thing because
11
we're all.
episodes.
Well, there you go.
Oh no!
It's not like we
We're
don't
all
have the
roughly
time.
the same age, so I'd be quite interested in sort of getting people's
It's actually maybe the thing that scares me the most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Back in the day when you're like, hey man, have you seen this crazy Flash video?
Don't even.
Oh, maybe after I'll do Happy Tree Friends.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
We're
Heard that
old.
name in a long time.
You come in
Lordy,
here
lordy.
speaking that name, you're going to get yourself in trouble. Okay, so that's it then. Goodbye.
We love you. Bye.
Thanks to everybody that listened to the episode,
Yeah.
and please be sure to check us out on iTunes and
Yes.
like and subscribe if you can. Thanks a lot.
See ya.
Get in touch, Shudder.